back to my channel. For those who are new, welcome. My name is Monica, and for those who are not new, welcome back. It is so great to see you here again, and I really do appreciate all the support that you guys have shown me since I started my BookTube channel back in December. And today is my March wrap-up. So without further ado, let's just get into the stats quickly so we can gush about books. In the month of March, I have read 29 books, and 6 of those were my favorites. And so far in 2023, I've read 100 books. My goal is 169, and I've only had 21 favorites out of those 100. So that's not normal for me. I usually have more favorites. Out of the 29 I read in March, 4 were historical romances, 9 were contemporary romances, 6 were sports romances, 1 was a dark taboo romance, 1 was a mafia romance, 2 were romantic suspense, 4 were fantasy romance, and 2 were paranormal romances. And for my March star ratings, I had 7 5-stars. Yes, I have 6 favorites and a 7 5-stars, but just because I give a book of 5 stars doesn't necessarily make it a favorite. And then I had 9 4.5 stars, 3 4 stars, 3 3.5 stars, 4 3 stars, 0 DNFs. I did finish every book I started in the month of March, and they were good enough that I felt comfortable giving them ratings, so there is no non-rating book. So I didn't really dislike a book. I just didn't love a lot of books. That's what it's showing. Anyway, and then I had 2 rereads. So let's quickly go over my March TBR. Thunder and Roses, Mary Jo Putney, I gave that 3 stars. A Court of Wings and Ruins, Sarah J. Maas, favorite, 5 stars. A Court of Frost and Starlight, Sarah J. Maas, not needed, 3 stars, because I don't know, I was feeling generous, but it's still not needed. It was just a book about shopping in the holidays and some acrobatic aerial stunts. And then I have King of the Court by R.S. Gray, 4.5 stars. Bad Boys Break Hearts. This is by Macaulay Smeltzer. This was my last chance to give to Macaulay Smeltzer because with the exception of Sweet Dandelion, I have not liked anything else she has written. I gave it 4 stars. I actually really liked this. It just didn't completely land. So I'm going to continue to search out more from Macaulay Smeltzer. And then Bad Mother, Mia Sheridan, 5 stars, favorite. Requiem by Kelly Hart. This was recommended to me by Tori from Novel Life, and I gave it 4.5 stars. It was almost a 5 stars, but I felt like the audience should have known about the twist a lot sooner than the heroine, because then I would have cared more about the romance. But that's just me. And then Mafia Madman by Mila Finelli, 4.5 stars. And last but not least, The Temptation of a Highlander by Elisa Braden. This was recommended to me by Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life, 5 stars, favorite. I felt like that was a pretty good reading month. I read all the books that were on my TBR, so I feel really proud of myself. So now that the stats are done, I'm just going to go through a couple of books that I want to highlight. And my biggest surprise in the month of March was My Dark Romeo by Parker S. Huntington and L.J. Shin. And the reason why, and this is not on my favorites list, okay? But the reason why is because I actually liked it. So I'm just going to read to you what I wrote on Goodreads. And if you want to see it, my Goodreads is linked down below. But this is what I had said about My Dark Romeo. This book is bonkers. Be aware there are spoilers now below, so I will put a spoilers tag up here. Okay, 1. I didn't know that this was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which still doesn't explain the overall plot or the heroine, because she was interesting. So 2, the heroine. Oh boy, the heroine. I have no words. Oh, maybe a few words. First, she eats pretty much nothing but junk food and is still every man's wet dream. She doesn't want anything out of life except for being a mother. So much so, and this is a spoiler, so if you don't want to be spoiled, just skip over this part. So much so that she contemplated turkey basting herself with the hero's cum that was still in her mouth after she gave him a BJ. She didn't, but wowzers, because she really did. She thought about it. Anyway, she was balls to the walls manipulative, and she was. She played games with him. And I mean, he played games with her back, but still, I'm just like, Number 3, the hero had a tragic backstory, which included child abuse and neglect, extreme starvation, and an unfaithful former fiance that preferred daddy kink, which made him cruel or beastly. He loved her, but tried to deny even when others pointed out his obsessive tendencies towards her. He hated or tolerated everyone but her, and he knew she wanted a baby. That was the one thing he could not give her, a la the Duke and I. 4, the side characters were equally and flamboyantly bonkers, or so two-dimensional they could be a Justin Bieber cutout, to the point where I did not feel sympathy for anyone other than the hero's backstory, because damn, he really went through it. Okay, so number 5, I'm familiar with the author's styles, both of them, because I've read them both, and I could figure out who was writing which one. So I honestly was originally going to give this 4 stars because the drama, the angst, the overloaded and inventive smutty scenes, and the plot. Oh my gosh, that plot. It had a soap opera-esque feel to the entire story, and it had me glued. Like, I literally was listening to this thing, and I was like, and I was on a trip, and I just like, oh my gosh, I cannot stop listening to this. And when I couldn't listen, I was reading it because it was that interesting. And honestly, Jacob Morgan and Stella Hunter were the narrators, and they were fantastic. They did a phenomenal job. And if I was gonna, and so for me, for being truthful with this, it's 4.5 stars because the narration tipped it from 4 to 4.5 stars. The 4 stars was because it was a good time roller coaster that had me cringing, laughing, and rooting for the characters that I normally would never root for. It literally stayed with me because I was like, what? Anyway, I mean, because come on, that whole scene where with the, yeah, anyway, it's highly interesting, and it also got me out of a slump because I have actually been in a slump, which shows in the numbers for me. Anyway, so there's that. But yeah, it's gonna be that one's 4.5 stars, and I had a good time with it. So another highlight for March is that I want to shout out a new to me author, Brie Bennett. I read Broken Records, and this is book 1 in her Sparrow Hills story series, and I was recommended this one by Melissa from Book Bar Melissa. That's in a vlog, and I will link it down below. The main characters, Lucy, she's neurodivergent and suffering from PTSD. She had past trauma from domestic violence, and she knows everything about rock music. I mean, she can tell you when did Elton John have his first hit, what Green Day had for breakfast that morning. I mean, she knew the stats. She's so meticulous, like things that most people wouldn't know. And as I said in that vlog, that I don't really like it when characters get so much into music that I feel like I am being put through a discology. But it really worked for her because she's so obsessive, and being neurodivergent, I'm not, but apparently Brie Bennett is. You have a very narrow point of interest, and so that makes perfect sense for her character, and I absolutely loved it. I mean, she would just get upset if someone said something wrong. I mean, one guy said he was partying with Freddie Mercury a year after he died, so that was pretty funny. I loved that scene. And then there's Jack, who is a rock star living the cliche life full of sex and alcohol and bad parents. His dad did die. He OD'd before he was born, so be aware of that. And anyways, this is a marriage of convenience because he marries Lucy. He has to beg her to marry him. because he needed to improve his image. And there's this great caretaking scene where she nursed him through a really bad bout of flu. And that's when they really decided, that's when she decided that she was going to marry him. And here's the thing with this book is that they both grow separately and together. And that's one of the things that I really do look for in a good book is good character growth. And they had the chemistry, they had the passion, they had the angst, and it wasn't even other woman drama. It was just stuff. And I really, really love this book. And the only reason why it's 4.5 stars and not a 5-star read for me, I prefer first person when it comes to these types of romances. Like romantic suspense, Bad Mother by Mia Sheridan was in third person. And it still worked well for me because it's a romantic suspense. Romantic suspense, I can do third person, no problem. That's not a big deal. But when it's a contemporary romance where you need to feel their connection so strongly and for it to work, and you don't really get that with third person. You do with first person, and that's why it wasn't a 5-star for me. But I would absolutely recommend Brie Bennett. She's fantastic. I loved this book. Thank you, Melissa, for that recommendation, because more people need to read her. And this is actually, I think, her first book that she published, or maybe her second. I know she has 2 books out. Okay, so my top 3 books. So coming in at number 3 is The Wolf and the Wildflower by Stacey Reid. This one should not be surprised. Stacey Reid is one of my go-to historical romance authors. I frankly love that woman. She's fantastic. She was on Alive, and she was funny, and she was just very down to earth, and I loved everything that she was saying. But I love The Wolf and the Wildflower, and this one is so unique. Like, again, this is like the 3rd unique book I had read. I mean, Dark Romeo was very unique, bonkers but unique. Broken Records was very unique, the way she wrote it, and the way the characters were. But this one, the plot was very unique. And the reason why this plot was very unique, because Jules is living like a man based upon a lie her mom told her dad when she was born. And James has just been rescued from the Canadian wilderness after being lost for 10 years. And his family wants him to be the perfect Duke. And she wants to continue living like a man because she has all this freedom that you normally wouldn't get when you're a woman during that time period. Anyhow, this started with a very tentative friendship between those two. James knew she was a woman right away. He had a thing about sniffing, and it's because he lived with wolves, which sounds really weird, but it is a thing. Anyway, so his family wants him to be perfect, and other people, including her father, really just want to study him. And she ends up being protective over him, and he ends up being protective over her. And their chemistry is automatic, but they steadily grow into a very, it starts with respect, lust, and then it continues until it's love. And they both grew, and they both gave. He was going to give up his reputation to be with her. Because she continued to want to live like a man because of all the freedom she had. However, they were both very reasonable people, and they loved each other, and they both were sacrificing their wants to be together because they just couldn't live without each other. And that to me is a perfect romance, because it was very romantic, and I loved it. So it was 5 stars. Number 2, A Court of Silver Flames. This is book 4 in the ACOTAR series, and this was by Sarah J. Maas, and we all know this. So I've talked a lot about this book, and I don't want to rehatch all of it because I don't want this to be a 20-hour video. So I will link that vlog down below. So in the vlog, I also read the Brie Bennett book. So again, that's linked down below. But Nesta had the best character growth from the very first ACOTAR book to this one. It's like she went from being very horrible and selfish and rude to being still rude, mildly horrible, but not selfish at all. If that makes any sense. She went through a massive character change from through all 4 books. And she really, really grew in A Court of Silver Flames, and she went through a lot in A Court of Silver Flames because of what happened in A Court of Mr. Fury and A Court of Wings and Ruin. And Cassian is calm, smooth. He is the complete opposite of Nesta, and he compliments her so well. And I loved, and he was so patient with her. He was just so patient while she got her crap together, and I absolutely loved it. And I love the side characters, especially the 2 Fae women who were working, Gwen and I can never remember the other girl's name. I remember Gwen. They were training to be Valkyries with her, and they had such a great dynamic together. Love that. And I really would love to have that type of house that Nesta was in, where it fills up your bath for you, gives you romance novels on a whim, gives you chocolate cake while you're sitting in the bath. Perfect house. Would love to have that house. Anyways, that's 5 stars. That's number 2. It was number 1 for a very long time until yesterday when I read Heartless Duke. This is book 2 in the Leagues of Dukes by Scarlett Scott. And this is my favorite book. It knocked A Court of Silver Flames out of the top spot. And I was very surprised because I had my graphics all ready to go. Court of Silver Flames was going to be my favorite. But then I read this one. So this was an enemies to lovers, or an enemies who lusted after each other until they fell in love with each other. And the chemistry. Bridget O'Malley and Leo, the Duke of Carlisle. She was his prisoner at the beginning because it starts from stuff that happens in book 1. I'm not going to go into that because I don't want to ruin that for you. But she does something really bad at the end of book 1 because she's an Irish nationalist who wants Irish freedom. And he works for the Home Office. He's a spy. Anyway, instead of taking her to jail, he takes her to his house. And oh boy, after he shoots her. Yes, he shoots her in the beginning of this book. And then and then he takes care of her in the bathtub, but in such a funny, horrible way. Because it is funny because of the whole dynamic. And it is definitely horrible because, I mean, he was like, I'm going to wash you and you're going, unless you tell me your name. And she wouldn't tell him his name, so he washed her. And then when he got sick, she took care of him instead of run away. She could have ran away, but she took care of him. And it was so good, because he was a bit of a baby, but it was really good. And he calls her Banshee, and it started out as an insult. And then it grew to be an endearment, which really worked for their dynamic. And she kept saying that he was her curse because she was doing what she needed to do to protect her family. And oh my gosh, they are, and honestly, and this is actually another marriage of convenience because enforced proximity, because he married her to cover up the fact that he didn't take her to jail, that he took her to his house. And yeah, and yeah, I loved every single minute of this book. It is so good. Like, I really enjoyed the first one. The first one was on my favorites list of February, but this one I actually like better because the banter is perfect. The angst, and honestly, I did not know how this one was, and I did not know how this one was going to work. And the reason why is because of how the first book ended. I was like, how is this going to work? I have no idea. And I was like, and I wasn't going to read it originally because I was like, maybe I don't want to know. And I really liked Leo from book 1. So I'm just like, so I wasn't going to do it, but then I decided to give it a go. And I'm so glad I did because it was my favorite, because the way she wrote this story, because it's a true enemies to lovers. It's not, I don't like you, but I tolerate you type of enemies to lovers. Hey, so it's Friday evening and I have been editing my March monthly wrap up, and I realized that I forgot to tell you, well, I'm just going to show you all my 5 stars that are my favorites. you will notice that one's missing because I said that I had 1 5-star that didn't make the favorites list, and that is Right Man, Right Time. It was originally 4.5 stars, but I rounded up to 5. I just cannot put it on my favorites list, even though I love the story. I love the romance. I love the characters and everything. And I just don't like it when authors make women... And I just don't like it when authors make women... And I just don't like it when authors make women the villain the way Megan Quinn made the villains. All right, come on in. Get in here, you booger butt.
I love you too.
I love you too, buddy. Okay, I know. Okay, don't knock me over again. Oh, but you're gonna sit on me. Okay, here we go. Let's just move this over. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Let's move this over.
Your pastime is non-existent with this one.
Oh my gosh, my face is all wet. You really got me good. Okay. Anyway, so what was I saying? I don't like it when authors make women the villains the way Megan Quinn made the villains in Right Man, Right Time, which is the reason why it's not going to be on my favorites list. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed these highlights from my reading experience in the month of March. Let me know yours down below. Tell me what your favorite book was. And if you've read any books that I liked, or if there's a book that you would like me to read, just let me know. And if you don't want to comment on any of that, please leave me any green emoji since this is the last day of March. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you in my next video. Happy reading. Bye, everyone.